Dom, do you want to take us away with this London Mayor story?
Yeah, well, it was really a matter of time, wasn't it, before this man got exposed. You know, he has been at the forefront, categorically denying anything about the grooming gangs happening in London or Greater London. And yet, The Express has released a massive hit piece on Sadiq Khan, bringing categorical proof that there has been grooming gangs in London. And not only that, there was five police reports that Sadiq Khan had to see, and he'd seen these police reports, and which basically undeniably shows the grooming gangs within London, and then he goes and says they don't exist and they are far right racist conspiracy theory, as per usual. So the Express dropped an article a couple of hours ago saying that Sadiq Khan has been accused of covering up evidence of grooming gangs in London after an Express investigation. The Mayor of London reads reports of young girls being raped in hotels by groups of men while publicly denying there were any grooming gangs in the capital. The children were also piled with drugs and had their lives threatened, evidence uncovered by the Express and My London shows. Now, the grooming gang whistleblower, a woman called Maggie Oliver, told the Express that the cases followed the same pattern she had seen with the Greater Manchester police cover-up of the Rochdale scandal. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philip MP accused Khan of being part of the cover-up and called for accountability. Now, what we are seeing in the Asian and Pakistani community is a systemic cover-up of raping young white British girls. This is the biggest scandal in modern European history. I cannot stress this enough. We have politicians at the highest echelons of politics in the UK covering up mass rapes of young girls, and this will put a massive stain on British culture as well as obviously London as well. But I don't see how Sadiq Khan can come back from this. Can you, Dan?
Nah, there's no chance. I mean, look, if it's found out that he did turn a blind eye, and now all of this is being alleged, by the way, at this moment in time. Nothing has been sort of found out. I mean, it's an accusation, right? So it's still alleged at this point. But, you know, you can really tell that there is some sort of cover-up that he's been up to. You remember that? Let's show that clip of Susan Hall, where he pretended at the heat of it that he didn't know what a grooming gang was, despite it being in every single sort of mainstream headline back early last year. And this was his arrogance and this was his attitude towards the grooming gangs. Let's watch this clip quick because it will show everything you need to know. And then we'll then I'll give you my thoughts on Sadiq Khan in this as well. Do we have a watch?
Yep. I asked you this question last week and you found every which way but not to answer it. Just how many grooming gangs have we got in London?
To avoid any misunderstanding, can she define what she means by that?
Yes. If you look at what's gone on in Rotherham, where there are people taking young girls, grooming them for sex, that is what I'm talking about.
We know in London there are issues about exploitation of young people, but they're not as defined by the member in her definition of what those types of gangs are.
So are you saying we haven't got the same sort of gangs that are in Rotherham, Bradford and lots of other places in the country?
Just for a misunderstanding, what does she mean by that?
You know full well what I mean by that. It's all over the television. You know exactly what I mean by that. These gangs of people that are grooming young girls for sex. Do we actually have those in London?
Today, I'm unclear, Chair, what is meant by the question. If you could spell it out, I can answer.
I've just spelt it out. Are you not listening? It's the sort of gangs that groom young girls at a young age for sex. Exactly how much clearer do you want me to be?
Now that clip was prior to all that. I mean, that clip in itself, the negligence and the trying to act as if he didn't know what it was already as bad as it is. He was already turning a blind eye in the public assembly there as well. But now where this news is uncovering that he turned a blind eye for a lot of different times suggests that he is complicit. And my reasoning for this is because it doesn't fit his narrative. So, you know, he's Pakistani. These are predominantly Pakistani people that are doing this and carrying out these heinous acts. And he doesn't want to carry on this sort of division in his mind whatsoever, and refuses to throw his own people, so to speak, under the bus, and is complicit in covering it up so it doesn't look bad on his own people. He's got an attitude that he thinks that the far right or just British people are the reason for division. He wants to carry on peddling that narrative and will do anything to protect Muslims and protect Pakistani people from coming in the headlines and demonizing them in a way.
Yeah, exactly. It's a matter of how they are represented within the media is why he is covering for them. And if Sadiq Khan thinks that negative press of Pakistani men is worse than the actual act of Pakistani men raping young girls, then he needs to get his head checked and be removed from his position of power, because clearly he has some ulterior motive that he is pushing through his position of power as Mayor of London. Now, Chris Phillip, who is an MP who is sort of part of this case, said, "It's shameful that the Mayor of London is claiming to have no indication that grooming gangs are operating in London, despite personally responding to reports containing evidence of victims abused by grooming gangs in the city. It is clear that Sadiq Khan is facilitating a cover-up." So this is proof that he's seen and personally responded to cases that obviously involved the grooming of young girls and the sexual exploitation of young girls. So these were 100% shown to him over the last 8 years as his tenure. And yet, for him to reply to Susan Hall saying he doesn't know what grooming gangs are, who is he fooling here? He's playing he's playing a part. He's playing a role as a politician. He can't just claim ignorance on this situation. And you're right, it's complete media cover-up. He doesn't want bad publicity for Pakistanis because he is one, and he knows how they'll be represented in the media. He doesn't want to give the far right, as he says, any more ammunition than what they have. Well, it is not far right to reject the mass raping of young girls. That is, any person with a conscience should reject that. Even people within the Muslim community should be coming out against this massive scandal. And this is what I want to see from the Muslim community, obviously, as well as appropriate repercussions for Sadiq Khan.
Yeah, no, well, this also, this is the attitude. I know Sadiq Khan is like almost a separate entity as being the sort of London mayor, but this is the attitude that we're seeing with regard to the stalling of this national inquiry that was announced, back in June, and they haven't, of course, appointed a head of a chair. That's because there's people like Sadiq Khan that are in this party and they're trying to protect the Muslim population and are trying to protect their vote. They don't want to cause any problems inside their own party. And this is the attitude that we're seeing because they, as a party, were complicit in a cover-up to try and, bring down community tensions, try not to put it on to Pakistani people. But this is the part of the problem. And Sadiq has been knighted, by the way. I don't know how he's been knighted in the first place, but he's been knighted time and time again. And now we're finding out that potentially he allegedly turned a blind eye to all of these accusations of grooming gangs.
Yeah, the fact that he's been knighted, it actually makes me physically sick. How can this man, who has been pretty much, allegedly been proven to be a part of the cover-up of this, probably, I would say, the biggest scandal in European history that's happening in the UK right now, modern history. He is a complicit part of it. And yet this man has been knighted. It just shows how sort of woke the system has gone. I don't know what he was knighted for. Every single metric in London has gone progressively worse, including knife crime, muggings, stabbings. I mean, I've been there for a while. When I went back to the UK, and I can physically feel how unsafe it is, walking around some of the nicest areas in London and there's people pissing on the side of the road. It's frankly, it's disgusting. The police are completely outnumbered by the gangs, knife crime is through the roof, and yet this man the king has the audacity to knight this man. I think it's shameful, really. But,
yeah.
After you.
No, Carol, mine's a different bit.
I was just going to say, this just goes into the whole Labour conspiracy of wanting to push this down and sort of make sure this doesn't come to light. They rejected the national inquiry of the rape gangs back in January, and yet Baron Casey recommended they proceed with it. So that was confirmed in July, and since then there hasn't been a chair appointed. This is because Labour politicians are complicit in the cover-up. There would be no other reason other than to suggest that they are completely involved in covering this up. And this is just one case of many that I assume is going to come out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, that's why they're dragging their heels, because we're going to find out a lot more politicians that were complicit in it, and there's going to be a lot of exposés. And that's what we say, the famous saying is the turkeys don't vote for Christmas. That's why they were against it. That's why they're dragging their heels this moment in time as well, to try and come up with a sort of contingency plan to try and work things out or try and facilitate another cover-up. But it's all coming out. And Lee Anderson has been very vocal, of course, on the Mayor of London and said that he has serious questions to answer. There is real credible evidence that grooming gangs exist in London, and for the Mayor to have potentially turned a blind eye to that is utterly shameful. So he's getting a lot of criticism, and rightfully so, from a lot of other MPs, and it's good for them to be calling him out. But we need this to go right to the very top with regard to what did Sadiq Khan know, and what did he turn a blind eye to? Because this could be serious. This could be him ending his premiership as the mayor. It really could.
Yeah, and I think that gives massive opportunity to Ant Middleton, obviously running as an independent, who has already called for the resignation of Sadiq Khan. I'm just going to get his tweet up here, but he explicitly came out saying that he is compromised and he can't continue within his position in office. And I completely agree with him. I'm not too familiar with the law. Is it possible to have an earlier election if he resigns?
I'm not too sure either. I assume they would have to. If he was to resign or was to be forced out, then I'm sure that they would put someone in there. But did you say Ant Middleton has called for his arrest?
Yeah, his arrest and him resigning as well.
Yeah. Well, again, we have to say the point. It's still alleged at this moment in time. It's just allegations right now. But obviously, we all have a real feeling that, from his attitude as well, that, of course, he had some sort of know-how and did look to turn a blind eye. I mean, history will tell us that is the case. But certainly looking forward to see an actual investigation going into Sadiq Khan and holding him to account as to what he did to cover things up within London.
Yeah, and just one thing on that, I've just looked up. If an elected mayor resigns or dies, a by-election must be held within 35 days of the resignation. So there is an opportunity here to oust Sadiq Khan in his position as London mayor. I think we should absolutely take that responsibility. This man is a stain on our global image and the image of the UK and specifically the image of London. I don't think he deserves any position of power after this comes out. I want to see more on this. I want to see the survivors come out. There are specific cases here which obviously allege to him knowing about this. I want to see the full force of the law be pushed against this man.